Kieran Brooks hadn't planned on being a hero. Tonight he just wanted one quiet drink after working a double shift, and making sure his daughter had eaten, bathed, and fallen asleep in her new dinosaur pajamas. But fate had other plans when he spotted the woman at the bar looking cornered. She was stunning, no question dark brown hair swept into a low bun, full lips pressed into a tight line, and eyes that didn't match the smile she was being forced to give two loud guys leaning way too close. Kieran didn't hesitate. He set down his beer and crossed the bar like it was instinct. "There you are," he said, sliding in beside her like they were old lovers. He pressed a hand gently to her lower back, looking straight into her eyes. "Sorry I'm late, baby." Her eyes widened for a split second, then something flickered behind them relief. She caught on fast. "I was starting to think you stood me up," she said smoothly, her voice low and velvety. The two men huffed, confused, one of them tall with too much cologne scoffed. "We were just talking, didn't know she was taken." "She is," Kieran said, his tone calm but solid enough to end the discussion. The woman's hand slid into his, her fingers cool and steady. "Thanks," she whispered once the guys walked away. He chuckled under his breath. They weren't getting the hint. "I was about to throw my drink in one of their faces. I kinda wish I'd seen that." She laughed, really laughed, and for a moment, it made Kieran forget the exhaustion dragging at his bones. "I owe you a drink," she said. "What's your name?" "Kieran." "I'm Marlowe Jensen." He nodded. "Nice to meet you, Marlowe." She gestured to the stool beside her. "Sit, I insist. You saved me from 2 walking red flags." He hesitated. "I've got a kid at home. I really shouldn't stay long." Her brows lifted slightly. "You're a dad." "Yeah, single. Her name's Tessa. She's 6. Smart as hell, loves dinosaurs and peanut butter." Marlowe tilted her head. "That's adorable." Kieran shrugged, smiling despite himself. "She's the best part of me." Marlowe waved to the bartender. "Then we'll make it quick. 1 drink on me." He sat. "All right, 1 drink." They talked for 40 minutes. It was supposed to be fast, but something about her pulled him in. She didn't talk like most women he'd met. She was sharp, funny, and curious. She asked about Tessa like she really cared, and when he asked what she did for work, she just said management and changed the subject. He didn't push, he never did. By the time he stood to leave, she was watching him like she didn't want him to. "Thanks again," she said softly, "for helping me. Any decent guy would've." "No," she said, her smile fading slightly. "They wouldn't." He paused. "You all right?" "I am now." He nodded, not sure what to say to that. "Take care, Marlowe." "You too, and tell Tessa I said hi." He blinked. "You remembered her name." "Of course I did." Outside, the wind had picked up. Kieran zipped his worn hoodie, shoved his hands in his pockets, and walked the 4 blocks back to his place. The apartment was dark, except for the soft glow of Tessa's nightlight. He peeked into her room, smiled at the mess of curls on the pillow, and gently closed the door. He didn't expect to see Marlowe again. But 3 days later, she showed up at the same bar. "Fancy seeing you here," she said, sliding onto the stool beside him. He laughed. "You stalking me now?" "Maybe I..." He turned to her. "You all right?" She looked around. Much better company this time. He ordered a beer, and she ordered something fancy he couldn't pronounce. They talked again. She asked more about Tessa, about his job. He worked maintenance at a private school during the day and did night shifts at a warehouse on weekends. She listened, nodding, her eyes soft. "You work a lot," she said. "Gotta keep the lights on." "Any help?" Kieran gave a small shake of his head. "It's just me and Tessa." Marlowe's eyes lingered on his face. "You're a good dad." He looked down, suddenly shy. Try. Before they said goodnight, she leaned over and kissed his cheek. I'll see you soon. He didn't know what to make of it, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. Over the next 2 weeks, they kept running into each other always at the same bar, always by accident, until it stopped feeling like an accident at all. One night she asked, "Do you ever go out during the day?" He chuckled, "Not unless it involves juice boxes or math homework." She grinned, "What if I invited you to lunch?" He blinked, "Like a date?" "Like a real one," she said. "No bar, no creeps, just you and me." He hesitated. "I'd have to find someone to watch Tessa." "I can wait until she's at school." He smiled. "All right, lunch it is." The next day, she picked the place. It was some rooftop restaurant overlooking the park, way fancier than anywhere he'd ever been. She wore a white blouse tucked into high-waisted pants and looked like some kind of movie star. He wore his cleanest jeans and a button-up that didn't have any holes. She didn't seem to care. "You look nice," she said. "You look really nice." She laughed. That was the goal. The food was unreal. He didn't touch the wine, she didn't push. After lunch, they walked through the park. "Why do I feel like I don't know anything about you?" he asked. She hesitated. "What do you want to know?" "Your job," you said management, that could mean anything. She sighed. "I run a company." He blinked. "Like you're a manager?" "No, I own it." He stopped walking. "Wait, you own a company?" She nodded slowly. "Yes." "What kind of company?" "Tech, Jensen Dynamics. We build software for hospitals." He stared. "You're the Jensen, like, the CEO." She looked nervous. "Yes." He laughed once in disbelief. "You're a CEO." "Still the same Marlowe," she said gently. He rubbed his jaw. "I'm a guy who duct tapes his boots to make them last another month." And you're a millionaire." "A billionaire." He looked at her like she was from another planet. "Why me?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because you saw me, you didn't want anything from me, you just helped me, and because when you talk about your daughter, your whole face changes." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "This is crazy." She stepped closer. "Maybe, but it's real." His heart pounded. He didn't know what to say. So she took his hand. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't let go. Kieran adjusted the collar of his borrowed blazer, wondering for the third time if he'd imagined the entire afternoon. No one had ever invited him to anything like this before, especially not someone like her. He glanced at the valet as he approached the upscale restaurant entrance, his shoulders tight beneath the stiff fabric. Marlowe was already inside, seated near the back beneath a chandelier that looked like it cost more than his annual salary. She stood when she saw him, her eyes lighting up not with polite surprise, but something warmer. She wore a silky blouse the color of champagne and wide-legged trousers that somehow made her look both effortless and impossibly elegant. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said as he reached the table. "I almost didn't," he admitted, pulling out the chair across from her. "Had to convince myself I wouldn't break anything just by walking in." Her gaze softened. "You belong here more than half the people who eat here every night." He gave a short laugh. "You're sweet, but I promise you that's not true." The waiter arrived with a bottle already opened. Marlowe gestured for them to pour for both of them. "I've never had wine that came with a story," Kieran said after the server left. "He said the grapes were grown in soil blessed by monks." She laughed. "It's ridiculous, I know, but I figured you deserved something ridiculous today." He studied her for a moment. "Why me? Really, you could be with anyone." She didn't flinch. Because you're different. You look at people like they matter, not like they owe you something. Kieran leaned back, folding his arms. You're not used to that, are you? Not often. He didn't press. Instead, he picked up the menu, scanning items he couldn't pronounce. Do you know what half of these things are? He asked. Only because I've eaten here before. Want me to translate? Please. She pointed out a dish. That one's grilled lamb with rosemary oil. The next is a sea base with citrus glaze. And that one is just a fancy way of saying steak and mashed potatoes. His mouth lifted at the corner. That one, understand. They ordered, and the conversation drifted to less intense things. She told him about a disastrous sailing trip she went on for a corporate retreat. He shared how Tessa once tried to flush a peanut butter sandwich down the toilet because she wanted to see if it would float. When their food arrived, he took one bite and froze. You okay? She asked. He swallowed slowly. That might be the best thing I've ever tasted. She beamed. Good. Kieran set down his fork. You ever think about what it'd be like if none of this existed, if you weren't running a company? Every day, she said, but I built it from nothing. I didn't grow up with any of this, you know. He blinked. You didn't. No, my mom worked 2 jobs. My dad wasn't around. Got scholarships, worked through college, coded at night. I didn't get here by accident. He nodded slowly. That's not what I expected. I know. They ate in silence for a moment before she asked, What about you? Did you always want to be a dad? Kieran's face relaxed. Wasn't planned, but once she was here, everything else just fell away. I've never loved anything like I love her. Is her mom still around? He shook his head. She left when Tessa was a baby, said she couldn't handle it, haven't seen her since. I'm sorry. He shrugged. We're doing okay. Marlowe reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. You're doing more than okay. His voice was quieter when he said, Some days I'm not sure. She looked at him for a long moment. Do you ever let someone take care of you? He blinked. I've never had that option. Well, she said, her hand still resting lightly against his, maybe it's time someone did. After dinner, they stepped out into the night. The air was cool, the city lights flickering like reflections on rippling water. A sleek black car waited at the curb. Let me give you a ride, she said. I'm good, he replied. Tessa's with a sitter until 9. I can grab a train. You sure? He hesitated, then nodded. Thanks, though. She stepped closer. Tonight was nice. It was. I'd like to see you again, outside of restaurants with chandeliers. He smiled. I'd like that too. She leaned in, pressing a kiss to his cheek. But this time, it lingered just a breath longer. As he turned to walk away, she called after him, Kieran. He looked back. I'm taking next week off. First time in years. Think you and Tessa would want to come upstate with me? I've got a place by the lake. His brows rose. Are you serious? I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't. He hesitated. I'll think about it. Don't take too long, it's beautiful up there. Quiet, no boardrooms, no deadlines. He nodded slowly. I'll let you know. She smiled. Then she got in the car and disappeared into the night. Kieran walked to the station with his hands in his pockets, his mind spinning. None of this made sense. But for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a guy barely holding it together. He felt like a man who might actually get a second chance. Tessa sat cross-legged on the dock, tossing pebbles into the lake as the sun dipped low behind the trees. Kieran stood a few feet back, arms crossed over his chest, watching her with a quiet sort of wonder. He hadn't expected her to take so quickly to the change of scenery, but from the moment they'd stepped foot on Marlowe's lake property, she'd acted like she belonged there. The house behind them was nestled into the slope of a hill, all glass walls and dark wood, with a view that stretched across the water like a painting. Too perfect for someone like him, but Marlowe hadn't looked at him like he didn't fit. She'd looked at him like she wanted him here. Marlowe emerged from the house barefoot, a linen shirt tied at the waist and her hair tumbling down her back in loose waves. She carried 3 lemonades in glass tumblers, each one with a sprig of mint. "I brought reinforcements," she said, handing one to Tessa, who received it like a princess accepting a goblet. "Thank you," Tessa said, eyes wide. "This is fancy." Marlowe crouched beside her. "You deserve fancy." Kieran took the last glass, his fingertips brushing hers. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," she said, standing again. "Besides, this place doesn't get used enough. It's better with people in it." Tessa tugged Marlowe's sleeve. "Can we go swimming later?" "If your dad says it's okay," Marlowe replied. Kieran nodded. "After dinner, if the water's not too cold." Tessa clapped her hands and jumped to her feet. "I'm going to change into my swimsuit." Once she disappeared inside, Marlowe turned to him. "She's incredible." "She is," he said. "She's why I keep going." Marlowe leaned against the railing of the dock. "You ever think about what you'd be doing if you hadn't become a father?" "I used to," Kieran admitted. "Some nights when I was changing light bulbs at the school or fixing a pipe at 2 in the morning. But it never lasted. Thinking about what might have been doesn't help when someone's depending on you." "Still," she said, "you gave up a lot." "I gave up what didn't matter." She looked at him then, and he saw something shift in her face. Not pity, not admiration, something deeper. "I read your resume," she said suddenly. "The one you submitted at the school a few years ago. You have certifications in electrical work, HVAC systems, even some mechanical engineering classes." He blinked. "You looked me up." "I wanted to know more," she said, "and I might have asked my assistant to pull some records." He laughed, incredulous. "You did a background check on me." "Just a soft one," she said. "I wanted to be sure." "Sure of what?" "That you were real." He took a long sip of lemonade, letting the silence stretch before asking, "And what did you find?" "That you work harder than anyone I've ever met, and that you haven't taken a sick day in over 2 years." He stared out at the lake. "I can't afford to." "You shouldn't have to live like that." "I don't have a choice." "I want to give you one." He turned to her, brow furrowed. "What are you saying?" "I want to offer you a position at Jensen Dynamics." He stepped back like she'd shoved him. "What?" "I'm not doing this out of pity," she said quickly. "You're qualified, more than qualified. We need someone who understands infrastructure, who can manage technical logistics across multiple sites. It's a high-level facilities role. You'd have a team, benefits, a real salary." He shook his head. "No, can't. This isn't Marlowe. I didn't sign up for a handout." "It's not a handout," she said. "It's a job, one you deserve." "I don't want to mess this up," he said quietly. "With you." "You won't," she replied, "unless you let your pride make decisions for you." He opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. She stepped closer. "You helped me that night without knowing anything about me. Not my name, not my money, nothing. You just saw someone who needed help. Let me return the favor." His voice was hoarse. "I don't know if I can live in your world." "Then let's build one that works for both of us." They were still standing like that when Tessa burst back out in a bright green swimsuit, towel around her shoulders. "Dad, Marlowe, come on, the water's perfect." Kieran looked at Marlowe. "This offer, when would it start?" "Whenever you're ready." He nodded slowly, then turned toward the lake. "Let's go swimming." Later that night, After Tessa was asleep in the guest room with a stuffed bear Marlowe had left on the bed, Kieran sat beside the fire pit, a blanket around his shoulders, and a glass of something stronger than lemonade in his hand. Marlowe joined him, her legs tucked under her, her expression unreadable. "I didn't mean to blindside you earlier," she said. "I know. When I find something worth keeping, I fight for it." He glanced at her. "You think I'm something worth keeping?" "I know you are." The logs crackled. A breeze stirred the trees beyond the yard. "My whole life," he began, "I've been the guy who waits for everything to go wrong, because it usually does. But being here with you, it feels like maybe for once. Something might actually go right." She leaned her head against his shoulder, then let it. He didn't answer right away, but he didn't pull away either. And for the first time since Tessa was born, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a future not built on survival but on hope. Kieran adjusted the cuffs of his new shirt as he stepped into the elevator, his reflection staring back at him in the mirrored walls. It was the suit that made him feel like he was stepping into someone else's life. The charcoal gray fabric was crisp, tailored, and entirely unfamiliar. But Marlowe had insisted, not because of how he looked, but because of what it represented. He'd said yes. To the job. To her. To the terrifying possibility that he didn't have to carry the world alone anymore. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened to a sleek lobby of glass and brushed steel. Jensen Dynamics. The name gleamed on the wall like a promise. Marlowe had arranged everything down to the smallest detail: interviews with the facilities team, a walkthrough of the central operations hub, even a temporary assistant to help him transition into the role. But today wasn't about logistics. Today was about showing up. As he stepped into the main hallway, a woman with cropped hair and sharp eyes approached him. "You're Mr. Brooks." "Yeah," he said, offering a hand. "Kieran." She shook it firmly. "I'm Lee. I run internal logistics. Marlowe said you'd be starting soon. You've already got people asking when you can meet. Word spreads fast when someone new shows up on the 15th floor." He exhaled a quiet breath. "Guess I better make a good first impression." Lee gestured down the hall. "Let's get you set up with a badge. You'll need it. It's like Fort Knox around here." Everything about the place buzzed with precision and purpose. Yet, as he passed rows of glass-walled offices and open-concept workspaces, he didn't feel like an outsider. Not exactly, and that surprised him. After his orientation, he slipped into the executive wing, where Marlowe's office sat behind double glass doors. He knocked once before stepping in. She looked up from her desk, her expression softening instantly. "Hey." "Hey yourself," he said, closing the door behind him. "Just wanted to say thanks for all this." "You earned it," she said. "I just opened a door." He stepped closer. "Still, you didn't have to." "I know." She stood, moving around the desk. "How's Tessa liking the new apartment?" "She asked if we could live there forever," he said. "She keeps trying to name the koi fish in the pond downstairs." Marlowe smiled. "She can name them all if she wants." "She already has," he said. "One of them is called Captain Marshmallow." She laughed, her hand brushing his. "You settling in okay?" He nodded. "It's a lot, but it feels right." "Good." He hesitated before asking, "Can I take you out tonight?" Her brows lifted. "You're asking me?" "Yeah," he said. "I want to do this the right way. No more surprises. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop." She studied him for a moment before answering. "Pick me up at 7, and I'm not making any decisions tonight. I'm letting you take the lead." He grinned. "Deal." Later that evening, Kieran knocked on her door, holding a single gardenia in his hand. She opened it wearing a navy blue dress with a high neckline and delicate sleeves. Nothing flashy, just her, and it was more than enough. "This is for you," he said, offering the flower. She accepted it with a quiet thank you before slipping it into a vase by the door. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." He took her to a rooftop bistro he'd found after weeks of researching places that weren't over the top but still felt special. The overhead lights were strung like stars, and a jazz trio played softly in the corner. They sat at a small table overlooking the city skyline, the air warm with the promise of summer. "You've been quiet," she said after they ordered. "I've been thinking," he replied. About how fast everything's changed, not in a bad way, just unexpected." She leaned forward slightly. "Do you regret any of it?" He shook his head. "Not 1 second, but I keep waiting for the catch." "There isn't one," she said. "I don't want to change you, Kieran. I just want to be part of your life, with Tessa, with your past, with everything." He looked at her, the weight of his old fears pressing against the edges of something new, something stronger. "I want that too." She reached across the table, her fingers linking with his. "Then let's stop waiting for it to fall apart." After dinner, they walked through the city, hand in hand, until they reached the park. The same one they'd walked through when everything first shifted between them. She stopped near a fountain, turning to face him. "I've been thinking about something too." "Yeah. I want to start something new, not just with you personally, but professionally too. A foundation for single parents. Grants, housing assistance, career training, real support, no red tape." He blinked. "You're serious?" "I have the means, but I need someone who understands what it's like. Someone who's lived it." "You want me to help run it?" "I want you to help build it." He laughed softly. "You don't think small, do you?" "I don't want to." He leaned in, voice low. "I'm in." She smiled, and it reached all the way to her eyes. "Good." The next morning, Tessa burst into their shared breakfast with a drawing in her hand. "Look, it's us, me and Dad and Marlowe, and we're eating pancakes on the moon." Kieran took the picture, heart full. "This is amazing, kiddo." Marlowe crouched beside her. "I love it. Can I keep it?" "Yes," Tessa said, "but you have to hang it in your office." "Deal." As they sat down together, laughter and dishes clinking, something unspoken settled between them. Not perfection. Not fantasy. But something real. Something built from the ground up. Together. The invitation arrived in a navy envelope with silver embossed lettering, delivered by courier to Kieran's new office. At first glance, he thought it was a mistake, some misdirected piece of corporate mail. But when he opened it, his name was there, neatly printed at the top beside Marlowe's. It was a formal gala. Jensen Dynamics' 10-year anniversary celebration. Black tie, press invited, high-profile investors flying in from across the country, a night of speeches, champagne, and headlines. He stared at it for a long moment before folding it shut and slipping it into his desk drawer. That night, after dinner, he brought it up while Marlowe was brushing Tessa's hair in the living room, the little girl chirping away about a class project involving papier-mâché volcanoes. "You want me to go with you?" he asked, holding up the envelope. Marlowe glanced at it, then back at him. "Of course it do." "I thought you might want someone who actually knows how to work a room like that." "No," she said, her tone even. "I want you, not because it'll look good, not because it's convenient, because you're the person I want next to me, especially when the stakes are high." He looked at her for several seconds before nodding once. "Then I'll be there." The night of the gala, Kieran stood in the full-length mirror of their bedroom, adjusting the tie Marlowe had helped him pick out. The navy tuxedo clung comfortably to his frame, tailored just enough to remind him that this life he'd stepped into was real. He walked out to find Tessa sitting cross-legged on the bed, holding a tiny velvet box. "Marlowe said to give you this," she said, handing it over with both hands like it was some kind of treasure. Inside was a set of silver cufflinks shaped like tiny constellations. Not flashy, not loud, just quietly, unmistakably thoughtful. He fastened them as Marlowe stepped out from the closet. He'd seen her in tailored trousers, linen shirts, even barefoot in the kitchen. But tonight, she wore a floor-length gown of deep emerald green that shimmered slightly beneath the light, her hair gathered at the nape of her neck in soft waves. The look on his face made her pause. "Say something," she said, her voice a little uncertain now. "I tell you you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he said, but I already told Tessa that earlier when she got peanut butter out of her own hair. So now I'm out of compliments. She laughed then, stepping into him. "Well, lucky for you, I don't need compliments, just honesty. You've always had that from me." They kissed, unhurried and warm, the kind of kiss that said everything they didn't have time to put into words. Tessa stayed with Leela, their neighbor-turned-trusted family friend who adored her and had stocked an entire drawer of snacks just for her. With that settled, they took the car service Marlowe had arranged, arriving at the venue just as the city lit up behind them. The gala was held at the rooftop ballroom of the Aldridge Hotel, all cascading crystal chandeliers and glass walls that framed the skyline like a living postcard. A string quartet played something soft and elegant as guests mingled beneath the warm glow of overhead chandeliers. Kieran had never been in a room like this, not even close. But Marlowe didn't leave his side once. He shook hands with people whose names he couldn't remember 2 minutes later, smiled politely as photographers snapped pictures, and listened as executives spoke in polished tones about growth strategies and market shares. But the only thing that kept him grounded was her hand resting lightly on his arm. When it was time for her speech, she stepped onto the stage before a sea of glittering gowns and tuxedos and cleared her throat. The room fell quiet almost instantly. 10 years ago, this company started in a windowless apartment with 2 laptops and a lot of instant noodles, she began. The crowd chuckled. But it wasn't just technology that built Jensen Dynamics. It was people. People who believed in something more than just profit. People who wanted to make things better. She paused, then glanced toward Kieran. "And tonight, I want to thank someone who reminds me every day why real change always starts with heart. Someone who's taught me more about resilience, loyalty, and love than any boardroom ever could. Kieran Brooks, thank you for showing me what strength really looks like." Every head turned toward him. He didn't shrink under the weight of it. He stood a little taller. After the speeches, after the champagne toasts and endless congratulations, they stepped onto the outdoor terrace, away from the crowd. "You didn't tell me you were going to say that," he said. "I didn't think I needed to," she replied. He looked out over the city. "You know, I used to think the best I could offer someone was stability. Show up, work hard, stay quiet. But you demand more, not just from yourself, from everyone." "And you meet me there," she said, "every time." He turned to her. "I've been thinking about something." She tilted her head. "Should I be worried?" "Depends on your answer." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, square box. Her breath caught as he opened it. Inside sat a simple platinum ring, no frills, no diamonds, just a clean shine that caught the moonlight. "I don't have a yacht," he said, "or a villa in Tuscany, but I've got a daughter who thinks you're made of magic, and I've got a heart that doesn't know how to beat without you anymore." She blinked fast once. "I want to build something with you, not just a foundation or a career or a home. I want the whole thing, the messy, beautiful, honest kind of life. Will you marry me?" She didn't hesitate. Yes, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. 1,000 times yes. They kissed as the city glowed around them, the wind tugging at her gown, his arms around her like he never wanted to let go. They didn't go back inside. They stayed out there, just the two of them, long after the music faded and the ballroom cleared. 3 months later, they married in the garden behind their new home, a quiet ceremony with friends, family, and a flower girl named Tessa who insisted on sprinkling glitter instead of flower petals. The vows were simple, honest, raw. Marlowe promised to never forget where they came from. Kieran promised to never stop fighting for what they had. And Tessa, when asked if she approved of the union, declared loudly, "Only if we can have pancakes at the wedding dinner." They did. And years later, when people asked how a billionaire CEO and a single father from a maintenance team built a life together, they never had a neat answer. Only this: they met by accident, built something by choice, and stayed because love, real love, isn't about status or timing. It's about seeing someone, truly seeing them and choosing them anyway. Every day, forever.